right, guys, the name of this sermon is going to be called False Advertisement. False Advertisement. Whoever this is for, you're a minister in some sort of way. Maybe you have a church, or maybe you just, maybe you, I don't know, have an online ministry, or maybe you have some type of a street ministry, or you minister to people in their homes, or wherever, I don't know, but in some sort of way you're a minister and you're used by God. Okay, you are called, and you've been doing some good things. You can preach or teach or whatever it is that you do, whatever your style of ministering is. And I'm not necessarily saying that you don't know the word, or that you don't bring the word properly. That's not what I'm saying in this sermon. I'm not talking down to you on how you do things. However, what I'm saying to you in the sermon, whoever this is for, is there is some particular subject matter, something that God has been trying to get you specifically to minister to your people, your flock, your followers. There's something in particular. There was maybe a sermon, or maybe like a sermon series that you were supposed to do, or something. Maybe it was just something for one Sunday morning, or maybe it was something that you were supposed to talk about for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. I don't know, but there was something that you were supposed to teach, something that you were really supposed to explain, something you were really supposed to really go in depth and expound on, but you didn't, because the topic at hand, the subject matter at hand, was something that people would maybe possibly find questionable. Maybe some people would have a hard time believing what you were saying, or maybe it was just something that would make people uncomfortable to hear about or talk about. So what happened was you got so worried about what people would think or say that you got to a point where you didn't follow through with what you were supposed to follow through. And so what has happened now is, maybe it's even to the point now where maybe people in your flock, your fold, they know. You've got people that know exactly what it is that you're supposed to be ministering, and maybe they've even done or said things to you that has revealed that they know, and that they're waiting, and it's almost like they're kind of like, maybe they're kind of like dropping hints to you, or, maybe, they're showing you that they're supporting you, that you have their support, because maybe you're worried you don't have everybody's support. So, just to give you some examples of what may have been happening, here's some things to consider. Maybe you were one that he gave you a word, the Lord gave you a word, you struggled with it, you didn't do it. Or maybe you wanted to, you had your heart in the right place, and you had everything ready, you had it played out in your mind, you had the notes ready, you started out the message, maybe you got a little nervous, maybe you weren't quite getting the reaction from the folks that you were hoping for, and maybe you froze up, and maybe you changed the subject, and you went from trying to teach something to jumping up and down and preaching, and everybody was wilding out, and everybody had a good time, but it wasn't the word that you were supposed to be teaching. And that's something that happens. A lot of times, we know that sometimes people, they want to hear preaching more than teaching, because the preaching sometimes makes them feel good and gets them amped up. And so sometimes we know we ain't going to get the hand claps that we will get when we're taking our time teaching instead of preaching. So then when you have to teach on something that's going to step on people's toes or make them uncomfortable, some folks, then they really don't want to teach. So then they just resort to preaching to try to smooth things over, over, and to try to keep people from falling asleep, and to try to keep people entertained so that they don't have to look at their watch and think about how hungry they are and figure out where they're going to eat after the service. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe you just got in a panic and just, you went from the word you were supposed to teach to pulling out some old message to preach, because that was going to, get everybody clapping, and it wasn't going to cause nobody to give you the side eye. So maybe you just resorted to that. Something else, maybe you felt like, okay, I want to get this word to the people, but I don't know how to say it. I'm not even really comfortable with expressing this. So maybe you were allowed to let someone else in your ministry bring this word, or maybe you were allowed to bring a different minister, a prophet or apostle or whatever, into your church to give this word, and all you had to do was back them up. And maybe you didn't allow that to happen because you didn't want somebody else to shine, to have that moment, to bring forth revelation to your church. Or maybe you did allow it to happen and you did let somebody else bring forth this important word, and you started out trying to back them up, but then when people started to question you and question that word that was given and have their feelings hurt, and it just was out of the ordinary for them, and it took them out of their comfort zone because they had never heard that talked about before, or they didn't hear it talked about that way before, and this is not what grandma and grandpa, this is not how they would have had it. So, y'all know how that is. Sometimes tradition is when dead people still have peer pressure over people. But anyway, it's the truth. Some traditions are great, but sometimes, man, we get, especially here in the South, we're so traditional, and we got to do this way every time, all the time, because that's how, great grandma and great Peepaw and Meemaw did it, and you're just so scared to step outside of the box, and meanwhile, these people have been gone for a while, but you're still scared what they gonna think, even though they're dead. But anyway, but anyway, the expression rolling over in their grave is an expression. It's just an expression. I don't think they're literally gonna wake up and roll over in their grave just because you did something a little bit different from how they did it. I mean, they're gonna just still be in the same spot, in the same casket, in the same grave. But what do I know? But some of y'all know what I'm talking about. But maybe that happened. Maybe you tried to back them up, and you got concerned with what people were saying, so then you took some steps back, you backtracked, and so then you started, maybe you downplayed what they said, maybe you tried to make people feel like, oh, well, you must have misunderstood what they were trying to say, and then you try to make it sound like they were saying something totally different from what they taught. Or maybe you even took it a step further and said, well, that was a false prophet, that was a false apostle, and I made the mistake of letting them in here, and I didn't pray enough before letting that person come in, and we should have properly discerned this person first, and you say all these things or whatever you say to kind of smooth things over with people, but in the long run you really kind of hurt yourself. And so maybe these are different things that may have happened, possibly happened because you didn't quite move forward with that special word that God gave you. And so you've missed opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to bring forth a message that maybe other people haven't brought forth around your area, because they feel the same way. They're concerned about what the people are gonna think, what people in the town think when they hear about it, what the church next door is gonna have to say, and you've missed out on some opportunities. But maybe God has put it on you recently again to go forward with this word, because not going forward with this has cost you. It is costing you in ways that you've probably seen, but it has probably cost you in ways that you probably haven't seen or known. You've probably missed out, not just you, but your ministry as well, on some very great blessings, all because you've tiptoed around this particular word, whatever the word is that you're dodging. And so that's what I want to get into in this particular sermon. So, if you're following along in scripture, I'm going to be in John, and we're going to jump right into this. John, we're in the book of John, just a few verses. John chapter 21, starting at verse 15, it says this. So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. He saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my sheep. He saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things, thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus saith unto him, Feed my sheep. So Jesus is eating with his disciples. The disciples are eating. They're eating good. They're eating with Jesus, so they got to be eating good. But Jesus is telling one of the particular disciples, Simon Peter, he's saying, you gotta feed. Yeah, you're eating, but you've got to feed my sheep. And he keeps saying, do you love me? Do you love me? If you love me, feed them. If you love me, feed them. If you love me, feed them. 3 times he's saying this to him. Whoever this is for, listen, you're hearing from God. He's giving you some good stuff. And you may be feeding your flock, but there's something really good that he has given you, or he has tried to give you, to feed to these people. You might be saying, well, listen, I'm not one of those ministries that's stuck on a particular subject. I just preach Jesus. I just preach the gospel. And like I said, you may be one of those people who you may not necessarily have a certain subject that is your ministry. Maybe you are just a full gospel preacher. But like I said, there may have been a time where he just for a moment, maybe for a sermon or for a week, or maybe, a couple of weeks, maybe he just wanted you for that time, for that moment, to just spend some time on this one particular subject that he's really trying to get you to feed the people, because it's going to bless them greatly, and you just avoided it and avoided it and avoided it, and you've made your excuses. Well, I'm not that type of preacher. I don't want to just preach on this one thing. I just want to just preach on Jesus. I just want to... And it's great to preach on Jesus. It's great to incorporate Jesus in every message. You can incorporate Jesus in the message that he gave you that was going to deal with that particular subject matter that you were so scared was going to run people off. You could have put Jesus in that. But there's something, like I said, there's something, and this may be for more than one person. So the subject matter for you that he may be trying to get you to preach on, that you keep avoiding, may be different from another person listening to this who needs this. But whatever it is, that's a rough topic for you to talk about, is something that might make people uncomfortable, but whatever it is that God has been trying to get you to feed the people, evidently, if I'm coming from this scripture right here where Jesus is saying to Peter 3 times, listen, you got to feed my sheep, whoever this is for, evidently, whatever it is that God has tried to get you to talk about, he's tried to do it more than once. It wasn't just a one-time thing. More than once he had to say, feed my people, feed my people, feed my people. In other words, there's been different instances, different opportunities, different times where he's tried to get you to talk about whatever this subject is, and you keep avoiding it. You keep purposely avoiding it and making up these excuses when really it's you're worried about what certain folks are gonna think or say, or who's gonna leave, or who's gonna have a problem with it. Listen. Whoever this is for, whatever God is trying to get you to do, you got to get on that subject. You can't keep avoiding it and steering off from it. It's costing you. You think it's going to cost you to see. That's the problem. You think it's going to cost you to give that word, that you think is going to run certain folks off and make the town talk about you. You think it's fixing to run folks off. You think it's fixing to ruin you. You think that's going to cost you, but in reality, it's costing you right now to not give this word. Whatever it is, whatever the issue is, whatever the subject matter is, whatever the topic is that he's trying to get you to deal with biblically, but in a way that other people are not wanting to deal with it on. You got to talk about it in ways that other people ain't really talking about it. You really gonna dig down into some stuff that's gonna make somebody uncomfortable, but it's gonna bless you and those who do receive it. But you're so worried about who all won't receive it and how the church next door gonna have something to talk about. And listen, look, it's costing you right now. It's been costing you, and in fact, you may see some ways that it has hurt you, but I guarantee you there's probably ways that it has cost you that you don't even know about. Some things in your ministry could be way different, way better right now. Not saying it's necessarily bad, but it could be way better right now if you had done what you were supposed to do, but you keep avoiding it, you keep dodging it. And more than once, he's saying, feed my people, feed my people. So then you feed him a message, but not the message he's trying to get you to give them. But every time you feed him a message, you sit back and say, well, I fed them, Lord. And I fed them good because they clapped and shouted me down and stood up, and I got to sweating and running around. And come on, folks got to hopping and skipping. It was good. Anyway. All right, so let me share this with y'all. This is what happened last week. Now, let me say this up front. Listen to me. I'm going to talk to y'all real quick about a group of folks they call themselves Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, some of y'all may have heard of these people. Some of you may have not. I've known about them for years because I've seen videos online on YouTube of these groups of people. And what it is it's not just one group. There's different groups all over the country and in other areas. But what they do is it's usually like a group of folks, usually like a group of black men. And what they'll do is they may have a ministry, but a lot of times when you see them online, they're not just in a church. They go to different places. You'll see them outside. A lot of the videos are them outside, like in New York and just different cities and different towns, and they'll just be standing outside, and people will be walking by, and they'll be interacting. They'll be on the microphone, and they'll have the speakers out there, and they'll have people standing beside them, standing up all tall and yeah, clapping like hype men, they have like the whole crew and everything. They'll have people ready to hand you out a brochure, and they've got like such a togetherness about themselves, and they're firm in what they believe and what they teach. Now, real quick, if you're listening and you know what these guys teach, listen. I'm not here to argue with you about whether or not what they teach is right or wrong, or whether it's right, but it's got some stuff in it that's a little bit wrong, or I'm not here to debate that. I'm not here to debate whether or not what they're saying is fully accurate or not. I'm not here to debate that. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because last week there were a group that were of the Black Hebrew Israelite belief system. They were here in my hometown. A group of them were here in my hometown, and they were outside. They were out there talking. They had their microphone in the speaker system, and they had the camera on them and everything as they're preaching. And I want to share with y'all how it played out. My experience with them, or rather lack thereof, really. But in order for me to really help you get a broad picture of what it is that I'm trying to express to you in this sermon, I got to take a moment to share with you what they teach. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's necessarily true, that it's necessarily false. So don't think that because I'm telling you what they preach, that I'm trying to preach it to you. I'm just showing you what they talk about, so that way I can help you see how they kind of were a bit of a false advertisement. Just hold. It's gonna make sense. It's gonna make sense. Just let me explain, okay? Let me explain, and then let me tell you the story. So this was the brochure that they gave out right here. This was the brochure that they were giving out. For those watching on video, if you're watching or listening on audio, you can't see it, but let me just share a few things. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to say that this is accurate or not accurate. I'm just sharing this with you because it's going to help get the point across for my story. So the top of this says the truth about slavery, and then it says this. They say the so-called blacks and Hispanics are the 12 tribes of Israel. You are the children of the slave trade. So what they teach you is stuff like, okay, they say, in the paintings or in the movies or any depiction in the media of people in the Bible, the people a lot of times are white. In the movies or in the paintings, Jesus will be white and the people will be white, or they'll be really pale. And what they teach is these people in these pictures and in these paintings and in these movies and stuff like that, they're being portrayed by people who are not racially accurate. They teach that Jesus and a lot of other people should be black or should be people of color, should be very ethnic type people. And so there's some pictures of some stuff in here, but it says the true image of Jesus Christ. And so it's got, as you can see, it's a picture of a black man, not the typical pale guy that we see in a lot of paintings of Jesus. And then let's see, it's saying here, it's kind of hard to see because it's a bunch of itty bitty pictures, but they're explaining that in a lot of the paintings that we see of Jesus, really the guy we see in the painting is a man named Caesar Borgia, and he's painted by Leonardo da Vinci. And it's just, it's like, the pale white guy that we see in a lot of paintings. But he's, they're saying that's not Jesus. That's a guy named Caesar Borgia. He's a real guy. It's just not Jesus. It's just some guy that Leonardo da Vinci used as his inspiration to paint Jesus. But this is not really what Jesus looks like. Now listen, I'm not debating this. I'm not saying, I'm not going there with y'all on this. I'm not saying you got to believe this or not. Just let me explain what they preach so I can get my point across for the sermon. So this is what it says at the bottom. It says, because we know in the Bible there's the 12 tribes of Israel, and what they do is they try to explain that each one of those tribes, they're still here today, but we call them something different based off of race. And so what they say is this. They say, when it comes to the 12 tribes of Judah, Judah is what we now call today Negroes or black people. So Judah are the blacks. They're saying Benjamin are the people of the West Indians. Levi are today's Haitians. Ephraim is today's Puerto Ricans. Manasseh is today's Cubans. Simeon is today's Dominicans. Reuben is today's Seminole Indians. Gad is today's North American Indians. Naphtali is today's Argentina and Chile. Zebulun are today's Guatemala to Panama. Asher is today's Colombia to Uruguay. And Issachar is today's Mexican Indians. And they go on to say that the whites are nowhere in the 12 tribes of Israel, but they are of Edom, the Edomites. They're the descendants of Esau. But anyway, they go on to talk about this and how the reason why people are so spread out all over the place is because of slavery. We were handed over to the Greeks and the Romans, white people, and we were moved all around all over the place. And so that's why the different tribes are spread out into different places. And so now we just know them by race or location rather than the name of their tribe, so on and so forth. So that's what they're supposed to be teaching, but they're supposed to go into great detail of how they know. In other words, they're supposed to be able to go and backtrack, where a group of people were and how they were conquered, and how and where they were moved to where they are now, so that you can, because anybody can just say, oh, well, I believe this tribe is actually this people, but their goal is to actually break it down and explain how they know that, how they know this tribe is actually this group of people today. And so that's what they were supposed to do, is to use scriptures in the Bible to give details of how they know what they know. That's the point, is to teach this, to just break it down, not just to just say it, but to break it down. So check this out. So this is what happened. So one day last week, I come home from work. Usually I check the mailbox, I go in, I get my dog, I take my dog out for a walk. So as I go to check my mailbox, I see one of my neighbors that I know, and she was out with some guy. They were walking around with their kids around the neighborhood talking. And I saw from far off, I could, and you know how, like, if you're outside and somebody's on a microphone and they got the speaker system and it's real loud, if you're up close you can hear them well, but from a distance it just sounds really muffled. It's just, you know what I'm talking about, like at a football game. If you're there, you hear them, but if you're from a distance and you're just watching the field from a distance, you just hear, right? So I'm just here, right? So I don't really know what's going on, but evidently somebody is really saying something on the microphone. And I see there are a group of dudes, and they all got like purple shirts on, and it's got like fringes hanging off the shirts, and they all got like a whole wardrobe going on. They got a whole thing going on. But I couldn't tell what it was because their backs were to me and they were from a distance, and I couldn't make out what was being said. But anyway, I'm going to my mailbox. Like I said, my neighbor and a friend of hers, they're doing what they're doing. So I'm talking to them, and I'm like, hey, do y'all know what's going on over there? And they were like, oh, it's Black Hebrew Israelites coming to teach in our neighborhood. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've seen different groups of these people online teaching, but I've never seen this face to face. Oh, that's kind of cool. So we're talking, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they go on to go closer to them to hear what they got to say. I go to the mailbox. I go in to get the dog, and I'm like, I'm going to bring the dog out, but I'm not going to let the dog get too close because he'll run up to him and cause commotions. I know how he is. He's a super hyper dog who doesn't meet a stranger. So let me just kind of keep him from a distance, but I'll try to get kind of close enough while I'm walking my dog to hear what they might have to say. I'm out, I'm walking my dog, and I'm hearing little bits and pieces of what they're saying, because it's hard to hear everything clear, but I'm close enough to hear some little snippets. And what I did hear was there were moments where the guy who was on the microphone was talking about gays and how he doesn't like them and he don't want to have nothing to do with them. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I'm not sure what this has to do with the whole, teaching everybody about the Black Hebrew Israelites, but all right, whatever. So I'm walking my dog, take the dog in. So I'm like, let me get close enough to hear them, but at an angle where they can't see me. I just want to focus on what they're saying. So I get behind this one apartment in my neighborhood that's like the apartment, the back of it, and the fence that's connected to it. And I'm just kind of just hiding out, trying to listen. I'm zooming in with my ear, trying to hear. And so basically the guy, he's talking about slavery and like he's starting to go somewhere. I'm like, okay, all right, I've kind of heard some of this before. Let me see where he goes. So let me see if I can learn something new. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about women and how they shouldn't be wearing pants, and how, these dudes on TV like Tyler Perry and all these other dudes that's not wearing men's clothes, they're all out of order and So he's going back to, he's talking about clothes, but then he starts using that to start going back to the subject of homosexuality and So I'm just kind of like, okay, he was going somewhere, but now he's got off subject. But okay, whatever. So I go around, making my way around. Well, the people that I was talking to previously that went to go listen, they just didn't, they didn't started walking off. And I understand why, because my buddy who went, like I said, my neighbor, she's a woman, but she wears pants. But she wears women's pants, but evidently they had a problem with it, so they left. So I'm just like, well, dang. So I'll go up, right? And what I do is this. They're at an angle where, like, the people, the dude that's talking and the dudes that's standing with him, like I said, they're at an angle like this, but their backs, of course, are still to me. They don't see me. But then there's a few over here that can see me because they're facing this way. They're not on the in the view of the camera. And they're the ones that are like handing out brochures. And so I kind of stood back at an angle, kind of from a small distance, where the dude on the mic and the people around them wouldn't see me because I was behind them. But I was just kind of standing there, kind of leaned up against the building, just listening. And so, like I said, these dudes over here, they see me, and one of them comes up, he hands me a brochure, he's talking to me, he's cool, he's giving me details on what they're talking about. I'm like, okay, yeah, da 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 da. He's friendly, he's breaking it down. I'm like, okay. So he goes back to stand over there with the dudes that hand out the brochures. So anyway, at this point, I'm just standing back there, and in the view of the dude that's on the microphone and the people beside him are a group of folks over here that came to listen, and another group of folks that came to listen. And it just so happened to, again, be a guy, a female, and kids. And over here in this group, a guy, female, kids. There seems to be that same pattern of people coming up, right? So the dude on the microphone, he's talking about some stuff from the brochure, but all of a sudden, see, in Deuteronomy, or whatever book it was, he said, in Deuteronomy it talks about how women should not wear what pertains to men, and men should not wear what pertains to that of a woman. It's an abomination, right? So he starts talking about that, and then he points at one of the little girls that were there with a guy and woman, their child, and he's like, that little girl should be wearing a dress. So then he goes on about how women shouldn't be wearing pants and blah, blah, blah. And the woman, one of the women, well, both of the women, all the women, were wearing pants. Even though they were women's pants, he had a problem with them wearing pants. So he's talking to him, oh, women should be wearing pants and blah, 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 and it's an abomination, and God doesn't like them, blah, blah, blah. So the couple, one of the couples, the one that they were focusing on, one of the couples with the kids, they left. So the only people that's in his view, the dude with the microphone, the only people that's in his view is this last group, which is a guy, a woman, and their kids. Or no, I don't think they had kids. I think it was just a man and a woman. But he was talking to them, and of course the woman had on pants. He was like, "You shouldn't be wearing pants." Blah 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 blah. So the dude on the microphone keeps running people off because he starts out talking about what's in the brochure, and he wants people to come up and get more information. But every time people come up, and this is 3 times in a row that I see this, 3 times in a row you see a guy, a woman, and their kids come up, and every single time they come up to learn more, and they're excited to learn more, the dude on the microphone changes the subject and starts talking about homosexuality, which, I mean, like I said, it's straight couples coming up to him, but okay, whatever. But he does that, and his way of doing that is by first talking about cross-dressing and how people should wear what they're supposed to wear, and you pointing out the women and say, you're wearing pants, you shouldn't be wearing pants, this is an abomination, God doesn't like this, da 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 da. And so he's driving them off because he won't stay. He's not teaching them what they claim to be teaching in the brochure. Because every time somebody comes up and they're wearing something he don't like, he just changes the subject. 3 times in a row I see this. 3 times in a row he has the chance to feed the people. See how this ties into what I was just reading in John? Feed my sheep, he said it 3 times. 3 times he had the opportunity to teach these people a subject matter that is a rough subject matter that a lot of people around here are not really talking about. He has the chance to really deliver something big, but every time you try to get up close and personal, they change the subject, and the reason why is because he keeps making it be about his feelings and how he doesn't like gays, and he doesn't like people that dress like this, and he doesn't like them, and he doesn't want to have nothing nothing to do with them, and he doesn't want to be around. And he keeps saying this stuff, which is his business. He can say what he wants and believe what he wants. The problem is that he keeps making it be about his feelings, about how he feels and what he does and doesn't like, instead of teaching and feeding the people something that is not talked about around here. So it's almost like false advertisement. You see the shirts, you see the brochures, you see all the stuff they've got set up to present who they are and what they're about. But as soon as you get up close and personal, they keep changing the subject to how they feel about these types of people and how they feel about how you're dressed. And no wonder they ain't got no women with them. It's just black men. They ain't got no women with them, because if the woman don't wear a dress every daggum day of her life, they gonna have something to say to her. So surprise, surprise, it's just dudes, right? Right? So, right, you're trying to do something for all your people, but all your people can't even be up there with you. Uh-oh. Never mind. Never mind. That's something right there, right? All your people can't even be up there with you. Only half of them can be up there with you. But anyway, okay. So this keeps happening, right? This keeps happening, and so I don't want them to see me. I just want to go home. And that's what I ended up doing. I walked away with disappointment, not offense. I wasn't offended that he said what he said about gay people or people that don't dress how he thinks that they should dress. I wasn't messed up about it. I was disappointed. Why? Because I came to be fed on a subject matter that I was very curious about and interested in, but I couldn't get that word, because it was as if it was all just false advertisement. They advertised something good, but they wouldn't focus on it. The focus was on something totally different. So let me share this. So first, let me say this. This kind of made me think of what a friend of mine told me years ago. She's gay, and she was telling me about that she had a relative who was a preacher at a church, and anytime she would go to his church, he would always preach against homosexuality every time she went, right? So what would happen was she would come in late, like after he's already started talking about what he originally had planned to preach on. And as soon as she would come in, he would be like, okay, church, turn to, and have them turn to some story in the Bible that's used against gays incorrectly, like Sodom and Gomorrah or something, and just start in on that. So the problem is not just, him always targeting her, but also you got to throw in the fact that he's letting his feelings and his flesh get in the way of feeding the people the word that they're supposed to be getting fed, if it's, from God and not himself, right? If it's from him, from God, but then you keep going back to what you want to talk about because you're trying to target somebody. Now everybody else is not getting that word or finishing getting the word. There's no end point. There's a starting point where you get people all worked up and they're curious about something, but then you never finish, and then people walk away feeling like they never got the climax. They never got the culmination of it. They never really got to the apex of anything. So they still didn't fully get fed. They didn't learn all of what they could have learned. They didn't get all the notes in that they wanted to take. All because of setting them up to not get them to point B after starting at point A. And to continue to do that over and over and over, it's almost like false advertisement, reeling somebody in with this, and then hopping over to this, but never going back to the original. to get the people what they were expecting in the first place. So I use that also as an illustration to get the point across. Whoever this is for, it's like people know and they're waiting for that thing, but you never get to that thing, that new thing, because you keep messing with something. All these somethings. All these old messages that you pull back up to resort to, or somebody else's sermon that you want to preach, or anything you can do to avoid what people are waiting for, the thing that they're ready to be fed with. Now, yes, there will be those who they're not ready for that word, and that may be a concern of yours. You may be thinking, well, they're not ready, you know. Well, there may be some, but let me say this, and I saw this on Facebook recently. It's a meme that I've been seeing float around, and it hit the nail on the head, and it's this. It says something along the lines of, how did it go? Not everybody can receive or will receive the word that you have, but you can plant a seed. So although there are people that are ready, there may be people who aren't ready for this word, or are ready to reject it, but you can still plant that seed. You don't have to force them to receive it. You can't, and you shouldn't. This is not something to force. You just give it to them, and either they're going to eat of it or they're not. But if they don't, and they don't grow fat off the word, it's not your fault if they reject it. Right? It's about you doing what it is that God has called you to do, even if it's not what they want you to do or not what they want to hear. You can't force it, but it's okay. And you're looking at it as, well, this is going to cause some division. That's going to be something that God can work out. And I'm going to explain how I come to that conclusion here in a second, because I'm going to tell you about something that I heard Perry Stone say in one of his sermons. But real quick, let me share this real quick. So like I said, I didn't say nothing. I didn't start any trouble with the Black Hebrew Israelites that came to kind of sort of share their message. But if I had wanted to interrupt and grab a mic and be like, hey, I got something to say, there are a few excellent points I could have made. And for the record, just for the heck of it, I want to share those points. Those 3 points that I could have made. Here's the first one. The first one that I could have said, if I had wanted to, was simply put, no offense, guys, but this is false advertisement. Look, here's y'all's brochures. I see how y'all are all dressed up in your fancy matching outfits, and you got, you're presenting all this, all this stuff like, you're trying to get stuff together for a science fair in school. You know how it is when you got the poster boards up and you got all the stuff drawn you know what I'm talking about? Y'all got all this stuff set up like y'all are presenting for a science fair, and so you're presenting this image, you're presenting a certain subject matter to discuss, but we can't ever really get deep into this. We can't really fully learn. We can't get from point A to point B, because you start at point A trying to start off explaining stuff, and then as soon as somebody comes up that the guy on the mic has an issue with because of how they look, that's all he's going to want to talk about is his feelings and how he feels about it and how he don't like this. Now, no offense, guys, but y'all are false advertisement. Who's really learning anything right now? People walk up, you attack them, and then they leave, and nobody's left. You're running everybody off. No one fully gets what they came to get. It's no offense, it's false advertisement. That could have been point 1. Point 2 is this. This, for y'all, is a waste of money. See, I'm not an expert on this. What I do know is when you have a group of people who travel a lot to give out a word like what y'all are supposed to be doing, the people in that group either work and save up money, or they take donations from others, or both, to pay for the traveling expenses, going to different cities or different states or whatever, traveling and paying for a hotel fee, paying for food, paying for this, that, and the other, right? Paying for materials that y'all may need or repairs on y'all's equipment, whatever. So you've got all this money gathered up, but if the purpose of the money is to get a particular word out there, but you can't fully ever get it out, now you're wasting your money and the people's money that invested in you. So no offense, but now you're wasting folks' money, whether it's yours or someone else's, because you put it in place for a purpose and you never achieved the purpose. So that's point number 2 to consider. And 3, the other thing I could have said was this right here. I could have said, okay, let me say this, and just to go ahead and just be honest. Yeah, I'm a chick that wears guy clothes, but you know what? That's besides the point. I know you don't like it. I know you don't like it. I heard you say it 50, 11 times. You don't have to tell me. I got it. I don't care, but I got it. I heard you. But check this out. I keep seeing these women come up. They're wearing pants, but you can tell by how they're designed. They're obviously women's pants, but you keep telling them, well, you shouldn't be wearing that. You should be wearing a dress because you are supposed to wear what is appropriate for a woman, what is made or designed for a woman. Well, if they're pants that they bought from the women's section, it's for women. They should be able to wear those pants because they're for women. And to say that they can't wear pants, that's like saying pants is for men. Well, if pants are only for men, that means this. That means that if a guy comes up right now wearing pants that are obviously women's pants, they're obviously designed for women, they got the women's shape to it, right? It ain't got that square shape that the guy pants. It's got the curves made in with it, and it's got the cute designs with the rhinestones glued to it. Come on. The little flowers stitched into it, the little designs, right? They got on some baby fat jeans or whatever, right? Some fat forms or whatever. They got on some what is clearly women's pants. If a guy came up wearing something like that, you'd have something to say. You'd be quick to accuse him of being a homosexual and being out of order and this, that, and the other. And clearly y'all's message is literally out of order because, we get it like you go to a machine that says out of order so you don't get what you want. People trying to hear this word, they can't get what they want, so your word is out of order. The message is like it's literally out of order. Nobody can get it. But anyway, so no matter how much they press that button, they can't get what it is they're trying to get from you. So you're out of order, like a Coke machine that's out of order. But anyway, so you're gonna attack this guy if he comes up wearing women's pants, right? You're gonna say, oh, that's for women. But you can't say that because you just said pants are not for women, only dresses. So if you agree to what you just said, that would mean that if a guy came up wearing pants that were obviously made for women, you shouldn't say anything. Why? Because pants are for men. That means all pants, even pants that are for women, because if you acknowledge the fact that they're for women, you're admitting that it's something that pertains to a woman, which means a woman can wear it. So either you have to say women can't wear pants, it's only for men, and women wear dresses, or see what I'm saying? Or you can go ahead and say, oh, well, men can't wear women's pants, but that's you admitting, hey, this is something that pertains to women, which means women can wear women's pants. So which one is it? So I could have made 3 very outstanding points if I had wanted to. And of course, let's be honest, they wouldn't have admitted to it. They was, you're going to hell. That's probably what would have happened. I would have got some fingers pointed at me that I'm going to hell and I'm the devil and I'm just out there to start trouble, when really all I'm trying to do is get them to preach what it is that they came to preach, right? Or teach, rather. It's not even like I'm trying to distract them from the subject because they're not staying on it anyway. But anyway, I left it alone. It wasn't worth trying to argue. I done learned the hard way many times in the past. You don't, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? You just let sleeping dogs lie, just whatever. So I just moved on. Like I said, I was kind of bummed out because I was excited, but hey, it is what it is. So anyway, so don't what I'm saying to you is don't put yourself continue to put yourself into this position where you know people are ready to receive what it is that you have to offer, and God has put it in them to receive it, and they're ready. And every time they think they're fixing to get it, it's just false advertisement. Like, here they are, and you're telling them, okay, I got this word. God's gonna do a new thing. He's doing a new thing. I got this word for y'all. Y'all better be ready. And you getting people amped up, and people on the stage like they gonna be your hype man, and then you get started, right? And people are quiet, and they're waiting to see what direction the word's going in. And then, it's real quiet, and then people giving you them looks, and then once again, you just turn away from those notes, and then you just resort back to jumping and preaching about something you already talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you just run from it again. So I mean, don't let this be false advertisement. Now let me say this. Don't misunderstand and think that I'm calling you false. I'm not calling you a false teacher, prophet, apostle, evangelist, pastor. I'm not calling you a false anything. But what I'm saying is you will set, in a way, cause your ministry, not you, but your ministry to come across as false advertisement if this goes on for so long. Kind of like what I was just talking about with these guys, the Black Hebrew Israelites, and I'm not saying this is for all of them that go by this title. It was just these particular gentlemen on that particular day last week. I'm sure there are others out there that when they go out there to talk about this, that they go. I mean, they may have moments where they talk about other things here and there to get points across, but at the end of the day, they preach it and they drive the point home. But just these particular gentlemen, they just couldn't do it. I don't know. But anyway, but you don't want that to happen. So now let me wrap this up by sharing this. Perry Stone. So, like I said, you've got people that are ready to receive, some won't. You may be worried about them walking away, blah, 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 getting mad. So check this out. So I shared this before with y'all, but it's been forever ago. I don't even remember the name of the sermon that Perry Stone did, but it was excellent. For those that don't know, Perry Stone, He's a preacher and a teacher. He's good at both, but he is such an outstanding teacher. You've probably seen him on TV. A lot of people know him from TV. He's a very, very popular TV minister, and I'm telling you, this is a guy that studies his word. He knows that word. I mean, he can teach his butt off. He can preach, but he can teach his butt off. Not a lot of people can teach their butts off. But we say, oh, they can preach you under the table. Perry Stone can teach you under the table. That guy, man. But, he can be long-winded, and sometimes he bounces from subject to subject, but he ties it all together to make points. It's never really too off subject. It helps tie stuff together. And so anyway, in this particular sermon that I heard by him, he was talking about different things. But somewhere in the sermon, he was sharing this story that a guy had told him, that a pastor had told him, and he was on the subject of revival, and he was saying that this pastor had explained how he had this sudden growth in his church. He said that God was getting his heart ready for revival, and he was supposed to be getting the church ready for revival, and he knew God was about to really do something. He was going to do something big. It was going to be a big deal, and he knew it, and people in his church knew it. And right before the revival was supposed to happen, some of the elders in his church came up to him and told him, listen, if you have this revival, we're all leaving. Now, these guys, these particular elders, they knew change was coming. They knew something, God was doing some stuff, some changes were going to happen, and it was going to be some things that they didn't like. Come on. They weren't going to like it. They didn't want change. They wanted things to stay the same. They were all about tradition and how they were used to things, and how, things were going to be comfortable for them. And they said, listen, we've been talking. We've decided we're going to leave if you do this, so you better not do this. You better cancel this revival. And Perry Stone was saying that the pastor was saying that he had a choice to make. Either he was going to cave in or he was going to go ahead with this and see what God was going to do. And he decided to choose God. He went forth with this revival. The revival was a success. It was amazing. People were coming. People from outside of his church were coming. They were leaving their churches, coming to this revival. It kept growing and growing. And when the revival was over, check this out. When the revival was over, by the time it was over, yes, all those elders that said they were going to leave left, and even more people left. So a lot of them stayed, but a lot of them left. But so many people joined the church, and I can't remember the exact number, but I do remember, if I remember this correctly, more than double the amount of people that left joined the church. So even though a lot of people left, the numbers didn't decline, they went up. They went through the roof because they had hundreds of people join. So the fraction of people that left was nothing compared to the numerous amounts of people that joined. So the numbers grew. So not only was there an explosion of revival, God was moving and doing great things, and not only was there a huge church growth, those new people were on board and ready to move forward with what those people that left weren't ready to move forward with. So it was great. It was a better deal. Those that weren't trying to move forward with God left, and a whole bunch of people who were ready to move forward came in, took those spots, and were ready to hit the ground running. They were ready to move forward. They were ready for a new thing. They were ready to be the hands and feet of Jesus. They were ready. They were hungry and they were ready, and they weren't there to sit around and talk about how they weren't going to like this and they weren't going to like that and da-da-da-da-da-da, and I don't want somebody taking my parking spot, and I don't want them deciding to change the color of the carpet and all this other silly stuff. They weren't there for that. They were there to see what God wanted to do. So maybe you will lose some people, but what if you gain a lot more, and maybe these new folks won't sit there and argue with you about everything, but maybe they'll be on board. Maybe they will be such great assets to your ministry. Maybe they'll be for you instead of always wanting to threaten you all the time if they don't get their way. Wouldn't that be a nice breeze for you? Wouldn't that be like, a breath of fresh air to you? Wouldn't you enjoy that for once? I mean, I'm just saying. So that's something to think about. That's something to think about. So whoever this is for, do you love Jesus? If so, feed his lambs. Whoever this is for, do you love Jesus? If so, feed his flock. Whoever this is for, do you love Jesus? If so, feed his lambs. Feed them. Heavenly Father, I thank you for another time to minister another word. Lord, I pray that those who need this word, that they will receive it. And Lord, I pray against offense right now, that they would not be offended by anything that I've said. Nothing is an attack on anyone. This isn't about bringing anybody down, but rather shedding light, rather bringing forth truth and understanding. Lord, let this be a word that really penetrates people's hearts so that they don't get offended, but rather they look at themselves and say, okay, it's time for me to move forward with this. However, I need to do it, Lord. I'm ready to move forward with this. I'm tired of beating around the bush and lollygagging. I'm tired of dancing around this subject. I'm tired of avoiding it. I'm tired of breaking a sweat over it, Lord. I'm tired of a spirit of fear coming over me and me just letting the spirit of fear have its way in me. Lord, I'm ready. Lord, what do I need to do to make this happen? Lord, I pray that that is the mindset. Lord, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to obey. I'm ready to bring forth this word. It's a word that's not comfortable. It's a word that's going to really mess with some people's theology. It's a word that's going to cause some people to not worship certain man-made doctrines and thoughts that they've held on to and traditions that they're bound by from folks that are in the grave. Lord, I pray, Lord, that these people would say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to obey. I'm ready to move forward. Lord, I'm ready. And I pray that the people of my flock are ready because I'm ready to feed them. Lord, I give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.